Hi, so John here inside XC60 TMS Motor Group. So now we're in XC60 Momentum with the blonde interior, as you can see. Very bright, nice. We have the Google infotainment system on the new XC60s, and I'm driving a T6 plug-in hybrid. It's a 345 brake horsepower car, split between battery and petrol engine, which is technically the T5 petrol engine. And we have the electric motor running on the rear wheels and petrol engine running on the front wheels. So at the moment I'm actually running on the battery. I'm running on a mode called B mode, which stands for brake. So it's adding more resistance to the electric motor, and it's giving me that regenerative braking. Now, regenerative braking, of course, when I'm braking and rolling, coasting, then that energy, or that kinetic energy, is being reverted into electric energy and put back into the battery. Now it just tops up the battery, but is a very efficient way of driving the vehicle. Now with this 60, it's very different from the 40. It sits on a different platform, whereas the 40 range sits on a platform called CMA, which is a compact modular architecture, and this is on the SPA platform, which stands for Spatial Product Architecture. So it's a different feel in the way it drives. In the SPA platform kind of expands to all ranges, from the 60 range to the 90 range, and so this is technically the same chassis that's part of the XC90. It's just been contracted and reshaped for the XC60. So with the SPA platform, we get a different feel, premium feel. We have air suspension in some of these cars, in the SUV version of the cars, the 90 and the 60. So it feels very, very different from the 40, and we have a different seat shape, which is different for the 40. It just feels a little bit different, but it still feels Volvo ultimately, the way it drives and the way it feels as well. And we have all the safety systems that are a part of the Volvo car in this one, with all the hardware in the front, behind the rear wheel, or the rear mirror. With the new XC60, we have a sunroof in this one, a nice panoramic sunroof that goes from the front to the back there. We can also open the sunroof, and we also have a sunshade as well if we want to block the sunlight for coming into the car. Now with the new XC60 and the sunroof, this now doesn't have a button to operate the sunroof. We have actually a touch sensitive strip here. So if I want to bring the sunshade over, I can bring this forward and see this, that up. That's up here. So we can bring this forward here, and that brings the sunshade from the back. You'll see that come off to cover or shade the sun. And that's got a kind of a matching colour to the interior as well. And with the plug-in hybrids, we can actually change the mode of driving, or the drive mode, as they say in Volvo. So in the main car here, we can go into the driving aspect, and we have a different range of different drive modes. So at the moment we're in hybrid, which is the default, and that is the car best managing the between the electric motor and the petrol engine. If we want to kind of make it a bit more exciting, we want to combine the power of the electric motor and the petrol engine together, we can select power mode, and of course now that engages the petrol engine with the electric motor, and it gives us the full brake horsepower, the 345 brake horsepower. If we want just to use the electric motor even more, then we can select pure on the screen, and that will allow us to, of course, just run off the battery and the electric motor. If we're in a situation where, of course, it's icy roads or snow, then we can utilise constant all-wheel drive because we have a petrol engine running the front wheels and electric motor running the back. So we can have a full proper 50-50 split and have a full all-wheel drive vehicle. Of course, it's going to be driving depending on what motor you're driving on. So if you're on the petrol engine, then you're driving front-wheel drive. If you're on the just the electric motor, then you're technically driving rear-wheel drive. Okay, so with the new XC60, we have the Google system in the car, so we can utilise all the benefits of Google. We have all the Google Maps at the top, and we have Google Assistant. So, hey Google, take me to TMS Volvo Coventry.
Navigating to TMS Coventry, Volvo cars.
Alright, there we are. So very simple. I don't have to engage with the center screen. It's nice and safe with Google Assistant or Google's voice assistant, which is enabling me to control the car via my voice, and I can have that linked to my contacts in my phone, Google Maps, which I've just demonstrated there, and also other Google search results. We are connected to full Google services, so I can say, hey Google, what's the weather like in Warwick?
Currently in Warwick, United Kingdom, it's 9 degrees and cloudy. Today, there will be showers, with a forecast high of 10 and a low of 0. Due to current wind conditions, it feels like it's 5.
So yeah, I have that access there if I'm making a journey somewhere and I just want to know, like, the weather, for example, or what the traffic's like to a certain destination, and Google's going to look after me through that. And then, just the same as the electric cars, this being a hybrid and being able to be charged, Google Maps will look after me in terms of charging stations. Now, the great thing about this in terms of Google Maps is that it gives you 2 fuel-like icons or tank icons here. So you'll see that this one is actually a plug. So if I specifically want to find a charging station, then I select this one. But if I want petrol, of course, then I'll select this one, which is representing a petrol tank. So Google's done a really good job at creating this for the specific car. Of course, if we were in a combustion engine vehicle version of an XC60, then it will only show one icon for fuel. So yeah, if I wanted to select, let's say I'm running low on fuel now, I've got about 5 miles, of battery energy. So if now I've got about 5 miles left on the battery. So let's see, I can choose different charging stations here, and it will tell me the one that's compatible, which of course is the Type 2, and it will even tell me the kilowatts. The hybrid cars for Volvo have around a maximum charge of about 3.7 kilowatts. For this one specifically is about 3.7 kilowatts. So even if I plugged it into a 43 kilowatt charger, then the maximum it will charge this car to kilowatt wise is 3.7. So at the moment I've actually got my phone charging, so I've got a wireless charging pad, which makes things more convenient. In the new XC60s, there are now USB-C connections rather than USB, and that's just moving forward with future technology. We'll find that USB-C becomes the norm, so that's Volvo just forward thinking for new devices as they are released. New iPhones or new Android devices that will now utilise USB-C for charging and data transfers. In the new Volvo cars with Google services, we have of course, an internet connection in the car that utilises all these great services like the Google Maps. Of course, Google Maps being one of the best mapping systems in the world. In order to benefit from its features, we need to be connected to the internet. And the car comes with 4 years of internet connectivity. Normally the average that someone owns a car is about 3 to 4 years, so that's why Volvo have that data plan for 4 years, and that means you'll be able to utilise all the internet connections in the car with Google Assistant, apps to download, so we can download Spotify to the car, YouTube Music and other apps that will constantly keep coming out for this car system. Google will also update the system on the car, so that the whole operating system will be updated. We do know that Apple CarPlay is due to be released on these cars, so that will come through a major update, and that is utilised through the internet connection on the car. Now, a lot of people are a bit afraid by the car being connected on the internet or being dependent on the internet, but especially for the sat-nav. But the great thing, or the clever thing that Volvo and Google have done with this, is that if we do come into an area where there's a dead spot and there's no internet connection, the car has downloaded an offline version of the sat-nav or Google Maps, and when we go into an area where there's no internet connection, it will switch to GPS signal and utilise that offline map, so we can still, navigate ourselves in an area that is foreign to us. At the moment, we've got good connection even out in the countryside, and we can utilise all the services that and all the features that are available to us on the car. Alright, so in the this lovely blonde interior XC60, we've got some other elements of the hybrid range, or the features from the plug-in hybrid. So in the settings here, I did talk about the drive modes and how they change the car. Of course, the power that we're in now has stiffened the steering. It's changed the transmission to be a bit quicker. Hybrid, of course, it relaxes that. It's a lighter steering and lighter gear changes. We've also got battery usage in plug-in hybrids. So we have these two options, hold and charge. So at the moment, I actually have 1 mile left on my battery. If let's say I always paint the picture of going to London. So if I was driving to London now and I got in the car and I had full battery and I didn't want to use that battery on the way down, then I could do that journey on just the petrol engine. But in order to save my battery, I would select hold here. So if I select hold, we get this little padlock that appears on the battery symbol now, and that will hold the battery, the state of charge. So now I can drive down to London on just the fuel, and when I get into London I can turn off hold, and then now I can use that battery when I'm now in London and I haven't wasted it on the journey down. Then there's the opposite of that. If I get into my car like I have now and I only have 1 mile in the battery, I don't have the time or the facilities to plug it in and charge and wait 2-3 hours to fully charge the battery. So we can select charge here, and that turns the petrol engine effectively into a power station. Now you might not be able to see, but there's actually a faint grey line that appears on the level here, and it will charge the battery all the way to full. And I would say from my tests, about 15 to 20 miles of motorway driving will charge the battery from 0 to full. The only difference with this compared to plugging it in, is that this is the most inefficient way of charging a car. The option's there if you need it, but your trade-off is going to be fuel. You'll probably lose about 1/4 of your tank to trade off fuel for electricity, but there are many situations that drivers find themselves in where they can't plug the car in. They do want to use the battery in a certain scenario if they're going into a city, and they have maybe a full tank of fuel, so they can sacrifice maybe a bit of fuel so they can have battery and full charge on their battery. But those are the benefits of having a plug-in hybrid, being able to manage between two types of motors, the electric motor and the petrol engine on the front. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to kind of take you through a little bit more of the drive modes. We've been driving in hybrid most of the time. We did push into power a little bit, but I'll talk you through how it feels like. And we've got pure as well, which is, you'll see when we go into pure that 1 mile has now changed to 3. So what happens is it just kind of extends the threshold of how the car manages the range in the battery. It's now going to prioritize the electric motor more so now, rather than managing between the electric motor and the petrol engine. So I can now extend that range, and it's all dependent on how much you put on the pedal. So if I'm in hybrid and I accelerate quite quickly, then it's going to kick in the petrol engine very, very quickly. It will always prioritize the battery first over the petrol engine, but if I wanted a bit more in the pedal and not kick in the petrol engine, then I would be in pure, and it would just give me a bit more on that. So I would say, like, if we were in hybrid, we could probably drive the car up to about 50 miles an hour on the battery if we're soft on the accelerator. If we're in pure, we could probably drive on the motorway at 60-70 miles an hour in pure on just the battery alone without kicking in the petrol engine. Of course, the car manages when the petrol engine should come into play, depending on how much charge we have. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into power. You can hear the petrol engine start, and we'll head off. Now I always drive in B, like I said earlier. B is for additional regenerative braking. D, of course, does regenerative braking, but it's not as much. So the B will just add more resistance to the electric motor, so we can restore that kinetic energy back into the battery. Like I said, it's not going to significantly charge the battery, but it will top it up. From tests that I've done, I've seen maybe about 15 miles of motorway driving or 50 miles of 40 mile per hour driving. You're probably going to top your battery up by 1 or 2 miles, which is good. Which is a good way of utilising and taking the best, or using the best out of the hybrid cars. So what I'm going to do now is now I'm driving in power. We do get the full acceleration of the T6 engine, and we can hear the T5, lovely T5 Volvo engine purring as I accelerate, and that's combined with of course the electric motor. But if I want to relax it a little bit, then of course I'm going to go back to hybrid, and it's now silence, so there's no petrol engine, and we're just driving on the battery. Now you'll see this level here. This is all dependent on how much energy I'm using, so I'm being very, very, very light on the accelerator pedal, so I can utilize just take the benefits of the battery much more. If I accelerate now and go to a certain point, again, you won't be able to see, but there's a faint grey line there, and if my needle hits that grey line, then I'm going to kick in the petrol engine. So the more I give on the accelerator pedal, the more it's going to get closer to turning on the petrol engine. So you'll start playing a game with this car where you will try and not kick in the petrol engine. Now that I'm coming up to red lights, I'm coming off the accelerator, and it's a little bit downhill. Now the needle's dropping below, and that means now it's using regenerative braking to recharge the battery, and more so as I brake coming closer to the red lights. But it's just a different way of driving a car. I say to a lot of people who transition from a combustion engine to a plug-in hybrid that you have to drive it differently to see the full benefits. But once you get over that learning curve, it's a brilliant car. And we've got plug-in hybrids that are doing 150 miles to the gallon because we're driving them the way they're supposed to be driven. And the great thing about plug-in hybrids is the fact that you don't get range anxiety. I mean, that is the thing of electric cars that's still going at the moment, but it depends on lifestyle. Of course, if you're driving just in the city and the town, then electric cars going to be brilliant for you. But if you're a motorway driver, or you're going to be doing long distances, sometimes electric cars aren't going to benefit your lifestyle. So you need something that kind of is an in-between. If you've got, like, say, a house in France, sometimes I know that France might not have the best electric network, so you've got the petrol engine there as a substitute if you run out of electricity. And you see there that people are used to now auto stop start as well. A lot of people ask me when I stop at red lights, does the auto stop start working? And the one thing you've got to get your head around is that there's no auto stop start in this, because we're just driving an electric motor. So if I do stop at red light, then yeah, the engine's not working at all. It's not on at all, unless I accelerate, of course, and then we kick in the petrol engine to give me that extra bit of power for the acceleration. Of course, the electric motor in this only gives me 87 brake horsepower, so if I need a little bit more to get out of a sticky situation or to accelerate around someone, then the car will cleverly bring in the petrol engine to engage more horsepower. Alright, and there we are. So that was the XC60. Thank you for watching, and you can find this here at TMS Volvo. It's one of our old service demos, and is available online to view. Thank you for watching.